My mom explained why she's always been partial to my sister. Okay, so I, 17M, have a twin sister, and if I'm being honest, our mom has always seemed more partial to her. She's always far quicker to give her hugs and compliments, and she seems a bit more emotionally distant to me. I've noticed it my whole life and I've tried not to let it bother me, but things finally came to a head recently. I don't really want to get into the inciting incident that started this. Long story short, we've been looking at colleges and I was upset because it seemed like she wanted my sister to stay local more than she wanted me to, and I told her she loved my sister more than me our whole lives and she didn't give a shit about me, and I'm still not sure why. Today she came in my room and asked if we could talk, and she said there's something she felt it was time to tell me. Then she opened up about her childhood, something she's never done, and explained that her father abused her sexually and she had brothers who abused her too, and it instilled a deep disdain towards men in her. She told me she's been meaning to go to therapy and get help, but she told me it breaks her heart that she ever made me feel like she loved me less than my sister, and she's been trying my whole life to get the fug over it and grow up, and that it breaks her heart that I haven't had the mom I deserve. She started crying and I hugged her and told her I loved her and she was a great mom and I was lucky to have her. Afterwards I suggested we go out to dinner, just the two of us, and I could pay, and she said she'd take me up on that under the condition she'd pay. So we had a really nice dinner and we talked, and I felt I connected with her in a way I hadn't before. I can't really explain it, but I felt like I saw her and she saw me in a different, but good, way. Overall, gonna be honest, I feel terrible because I feel like I made her trauma all about me. She's a wonderful person and I don't know why I'd accuse her of not loving me like she loves my sister. All I know is that I'm gonna be better to her and understand she's doing her best, as we all are. That's all. Just figured I'd share somewhere. Edit. Okay, yes, my mom has been making mistakes with not getting treatment and how she's been more partial to my sister than me. However, that doesn't mean she's a horrible mother like a bunch of comments are insinuating. She's a human being in pain and she was able to admit when she did something wrong, and just so everyone knows, she did make some calls and has an intake therapy appointment on Wednesday. If I made my mother sound like she hated me or was blatantly awful to me, she doesn't and she isn't. I love her and she loves me and we're going to do better from now on. Update. So I made a post last month talking about how my mother opened up to me about why she's always seemed more partial to my sister. I was going to post an update 2 weeks ago, but the Reddit app crashed and I lost the post as I was close to finished with it, and I rage quit and lost the drive to write another one. That being said, thank you to some of the people commenting asking for an update. You helped bring the drive back. For those of you who haven't read my original post, to make a long story short, my mother was sexually abused her whole childhood by almost every single one of the men in her life, including her father, older brothers, and some older students at school. These horrible experiences ended up instilling a deep disdain towards men inside of my mother, and my whole life I always felt she connected with my sister more than me and made more of an effort to connect with her than me, and I confronted her about it recently. Then for the first time, she told me what had happened in her childhood to make her more partial to women and agreed to get therapy to help her with her problems. So before I get into my update, a few things. First, people were asking about my father, and well, I've never met him. My mother has never told us about him aside from the fact that he left her to mother us all by herself at the last second. Like really, all by herself. We don't have any family members we talk to. Additionally, people accused her of telling me the story to manipulate me and get herself a pass, and that's just not true. If you want to argue she wasn't taking care of herself in the way she should have, then sure, you're not wrong. However, she's not abusive or shitty like that. She's just a person in pain. Now on to the update. She goes to therapy on Monday afternoons and I've been going with her to her sessions and we get dinner afterwards. To be honest, the main reason I started going with her to make sure she goes, and that's been going well. She walked out of one session crying this month, but that's just how it goes sometimes. I've also been seeing eye to eye with my mom in a way I never have, and I've even been getting along better with my sister, who she also ended up telling about her childhood, and my sister has been insanely compassionate towards both me and our mom, and sometimes will intentionally leave my mother and I alone so we can bond. And don't make any mistake, she is trying her damnedest to connect with me. She's been asking me questions about my hobbies and engaging in them with me, and I do believe she's a great mom. I'll close this out with an uplifting story from a few nights ago. So my sister and I watched some TV together and were up late, so we started heading to bed but heard our mom in her bed crying. We looked at each other and neither of us knew why she was crying, but I know she's been in pain, so I went inside and without saying anything lied down her bed next to her. She stopped crying and seemed surprised, but then my sister came into the room and also without saying a word got into the bed next to us. My mom started crying again, a good cry this time, and gave us both a hug and said, "I love you guys," and the three of us all went to sleep together. It genuinely made me feel like my sister and I were little kids again. Obviously we had a lot less space than we did back then and were packed tightly together, haha, but it was wonderful and reminded me of the old days when we'd all fall asleep together. Anyway, yeah, that's the update. Thank you to the people who were commenting asking me to post the update and to anyone who left a supportive comment on my last post. It means a lot. Update 2. So I figured I'd post another update. I've made posts about my mother who explained to me how she was sexually abused by all the men in her childhood, which is why she's always seen partial to my twin sister, and you can just go to my post history to see the full story because I don't particularly care to summarize it again. This one's not as happy. Ever since I first confronted her about it, I've had this sense of resentment towards her I'd been trying to compartmentalize and deal with later, or at least in my own therapy sessions. As of late it's been getting harder to ignore them, and over the weekend I lost my temper and yelled at her asking why she thought it was okay to wait so long to get help and how she probably wouldn't have done anything if I didn't call her out for her bullshit. She heard me out and started to cry and said the only thing she can say is I'm right and I've always deserved a mom who would outwardly love me as much as my sister, and it breaks her heart I didn't get that mother, and all she can say is she's sorry and hopes I can forgive her someday. I didn't say anything in return and just left the house. I haven't confronted her since, and I know she feels bad and the shitty part of me feels good about that, but I know she needs all the support she can get, so it's just a shitty situation all around. This is probably above Reddit's pay grade, but I figured I'd post it anyway. Update 3. I was thinking today and randomly remembered a year ago, I, 18M, posted about me telling my mom that she's obviously always loved my twin sister more than me, and then she explaining how she grew up in a house with a father and brothers who regularly sexually assaulted and roped her, and she projected that disdain towards men onto me. Since then, my mother, my sister, and I have been seeing our own individual therapists, and we've had several group sessions together. So today, my sister is away at college, and I stayed local and go to community college. Something, I think, I mentioned in my old post was my mom was pushing me to go away to school and encouraging my sister to stay local. Funny how that happens. Anyway, my sister is coming back home this week for the holidays, but I've honestly really enjoyed it here with my mom. She's been making an effort lately to engage with me with the things like passionate about, and I'm a big movie fan, so I've been showing her my favorite movies over the past few months. She's made an insane amount of progress as well, and I'm so proud of her, and we have a wonderful relationship. It certainly wasn't always pretty over the past year, and even though the work isn't always easy, the payoff is certainly worth it. So yeah, we're doing a lot better than we were when I made that original post last year.